Well, good morning and welcome to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us here Sunday morning, July 9th, 2023. And we are live here at Love 105 FM every Sunday morning for the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Appreciate you joining us. Hope your weekend is going well, wherever you might be catching us on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. Again, throughout the week, you can always go to mnrealestateshow.com. And again, we've got a great show today. You can join us throughout the show, 612-294-6949 at any point. Questions, comments, thoughts, don't hesitate to comment on the social media stream. And I've got a lot to talk about today. Again, the show is hosted by Mike Overson of Luminate Home Loans, Scott Wolmering, and myself, Ryan O'Neill of the Minnesota Real Estate Team. Appreciate you joining us. Scott, good morning to you. Good to see you, bud.
Good to be here. Thanks everybody for tuning in. My car alarm is going off, so I'm gonna have to leave you for the first minute of the show.
All right.
I'll be right back.
All right, sounds good. Hey, this is live. We are live here every Sunday morning. We're getting ready to go on air. It's Love 105 FM. Appreciate you joining us here this morning at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. 612-294-6949. Hey, good morning and welcome to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hope your weekend is going well. It is July the 9th, 2023, and we're live here at Love 105 FM every Sunday morning for the Minnesota Real Estate Show. This is a local show. We take your questions, your comments, your thoughts. It's interactive as well. You can join us if you're catching us on social media. You can always join us on social media, or again, 612-294-6949 by phone or text. And again, as a show hosted by Mike Overson of Luminate Home Loans, myself, Ryan O'Neill, and Scott Wolmering of the Minnesota Real Estate Team. Remax Advantage Plus, a lot of great stuff going on here in the Twin Cities real estate market that we're going to be talking about here today. Scott, good morning to you. Nice to see you there, bud.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks everybody for tuning into the show. Like Ryan said, this is live and local here to the top of the hour. Love your phone calls, 612-294-6949. We've been doing the show for about 20 years. If you're a first-time listener, thanks for tuning in. If you're coming back, we welcome you back. Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about in the show. We're going to talk about what we think is going to happen coming into this kind of late summer fall market, and like we always do at the beginning of the show, kind of get into the different numbers.
Yeah, again, we've always got Mr. Mike Overson. Mike, again, is with Luminate Home Loans. He is, they are a local company, Luminate Home Loans, Luminate Bank, here in the Twin Cities as well. A wonderful company that we've worked with the Minnesota Real Estate Team for probably over 10, 12, 15 years, a long time. Really great folks. This first segment of the show, Mike, we always like diving into a mortgage update. Good to see you there, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, mortgage update. Do we have to talk about rates, or can we skip that today? And
You get the low chair, by the way, Mike, in our studio. We always kind of, for catching us on social media, there's different levels of chairs. So Mike got the low chair this morning here.
It's all good. It's all good. I still see I'm the same height as Scott. Over
You are. I crank mine up as high as it went, and I purposely knocked the legs off that thing.
So, it was not a good week for rates. It was one of the headlines was it was like everything that could be bad for rates happened this week, basically. So the Fed minutes came out. The Fed is probably going to raise prime 2 more times this year, which means that inflation is still out there. It's still on their radar. It's not where they want it to be. So that was one thing that came out. Jobs report came out.
Super good, wasn't it?
Really good. Like double the amount of jobs were created than what was forecasted. And oddly enough, that's bad for mortgage interest rates. So a bad jobs report would have been better for us. So you take the Fed minutes with them saying they're going to raise rates. You take a really good jobs report. A couple other things came out too. And it was just all these things happened at once basically this week. And so most of the rates that I was quoting on Friday were 7.25 to 7.5. There was still some people in the high sixes. So if you're underneath a certain income limit, or if you're on some sort of special program out there, you may be in the high sixes here. But the bulk of people right now in a conventional 30-year fix, you're going to be in that low to mid 7 range.
Okay, yeah, it is. It is interesting that the jobs report. I think the stock market kind of tanked a little bit too. It seems like everyone was expecting or talking recession. Now are they saying maybe not a recession? That was the talk anyway.
Right. Yeah. And so you get kind of mixed reviews, and that's why we get, a market reaction like this, because again, it's still a little unpredictable out there what's going to happen. And so when you have unpredictability, people err towards a more conservative side. And so that's why we see rates where they're at.
Yeah, I was at an event yesterday. I was talking to this guy about the real estate market just in general, and his question was, he said, "Well, you know what? We're kind of at where rates have always been. Why is it hurting the market?" And I think that's a comment for someone has not been in real estate. Maybe you're looking for the last few years. That's a common comment. The problem is what I told him, which is what we're dealing with, is we've had the double whammy. We've had one of the highest appreciating markets in the last 2-3 years. So just use a number, we're going up 15% in value when things are clipping along at 2.5 to 3 to 3.5%, and then in 90 days it goes from 2.6 to 7.5. So now you've got a way more expensive house because it's appreciated for that amount of time, and you have rates that just tripled. So that's what's going to put the can on this thing.
Hey, we got to give a nice shout out to our friend and co-host, Mr. Wolmering, Scott Wolmering, who yesterday took part in a event. It is a local, statewide, I believe, Midwest bodybuilding competition. And Scott was in the over 50 category and had an awesome showing, very impressive, had a great following, a ton of support from people. Well done, Scott. Well done there, young man.
I thank you. We were definitely in the older men's division. It was a lot of fun. And I like the process. I ended up getting third place, which obviously is not the goal, but just like the entire process, I'm also glad it's done, and I'm going to go get a McDonald's today.
Yeah, I asked him like that. Sorry.
I was going to say, I wish I could have got up a little bit earlier today and brought you a couple of Bavarian cream filled long johns.
I got one.
Oh, you did?
I got one on the way in.
Yeah. And for those radio listeners at Love 105 FM that haven't seen the SPF Irish on yours truly, Scott, I was there at the event yesterday, and I should have known better, knowing my friend Scott, taking pictures with everyone. By the way, I'm the one guy who's super white, over 6'2", in street clothes. Everybody else is chiseled and tan. And so anyway, Scott's like, "Hey, let's take a picture together." So I said, "Oh, okay." So I walk over with Scott, take the picture, and then Scott threw it up on social media. That could be the picture of the year there, Scott.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I said, I did win first place in one thing. It's the disparity of color and height between your guests that came to the show. So it was, had a little fun. When you're laughing in your kitchen by yourself when you're writing something, you think you're really funny.
Right.
Oh man, Mike, when we were talking about interest rates again, and you can join our discussion 612-294-6949. We are live here at Love 105 FM. Appreciate you joining us here, Mike. It's hard when you said again in the update, interest rates rising a couple more times. Have you seen long-term rates rise when the Fed increases that short-term rate?
I mean, typically when the Feds raise the prime rate, that's typically good for mortgage rates. Now it's also typically a very short window of what it's good. So when the Feds come out to their next meeting, they come out and say, "Hey, we're going to raise rates a quarter." To be honest with you, it's probably not going to swing mortgage rates a whole lot because everyone's expecting it already, right? It really moves rates when it's unexpected. So if everyone's expecting the Fed to lower prime at their next meeting and all of a sudden they come and they raise it, we would see mortgage rates that day and the few days after that go down 1/4 to 3/8%. At this point, it's just no secret. Everyone knows it's coming. So everyone's already baked it into their rates and it's already there. So I don't expect rates to move a whole lot the next time the Feds come out and do that.
Hey, let's hit the real estate update in the first segment here before the first break at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. This past week, we did see new listings in the Twin Cities go down 21%. There were 1,492 new properties that came on the market. Pending sales or accepted purchase agreements down 11.3% year over year. And then the overall inventory is still down about 10%. There's 7,660 homes for sale in the Twin Cities. And days on market, guys, days on market is up to 38 days on average. That is an increase of 65% year over year. So longer days on market. And interestingly, if we look at the median sales price in the Twin Cities, in May of 2022, so last year, May, it was $375. Right now, guys, May in 2023, it's $370. So it actually went down 1.3%. So that's, Scott, what some of the sellers, agents are feeling in our market.
Yeah, they're feeling in the mid price range. So if you've got a house that's under $400,000-$500,000, your median sale price has not gone down. That's gone up. When you and again, I'm talking. You got to eliminate sometimes the YZs of the world and Eden Prairies and Edinas. I'm just talking about normal outer ring suburbs. If you've got a home in the the 600 to 900 range, that's where we're seeing the biggest shock of what would have been 2 years ago, multiple offers on a property, 20 showings in the first week, et cetera, et cetera. Now, very common, 1 or 2 showings. All of a sudden, maybe you get a third one coming in. It's just it's a lot slower, and that's where people are getting hit.
We got our friend, Mr. Brad Sanford, Farmers Insurance, with us today. Great to see you as always, buddy.
You too. How are you guys?
Nice to see you. And we know you got a great segment coming up here. You got a lot going on. You've got a daughter looking for a home.
Yeah, Abby and John are looking for a place in the northwest suburbs. Just picked them up from the rodeo last night in Isanti.
Fun.
Have you guys been to a rodeo?
I have been.
Mm-hmm.
I have been.
Those bulls really, you think that they're strong, but when you see them up close, my buddy rode one. He lasted 1.5 seconds.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't last 1.5 seconds because I'm not getting on a bull.
Yeah, it is good stuff we've got here at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. 612-294-6949 is how you can join us throughout the week. mnrealestateshow.com if you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, invest in real estate. Wherever you're catching the show in Minnesota or Western Wisconsin, we'd be honored to help you. We'll be back after the break. Thanks for joining us on social media. Gail, nice comment down in Sarasota. She says, joining you from Sarasota, Venice, Florida. Pay 25% referrals. Love you guys. Thank you, Gail. Thanks for joining us. We'll absolutely send anything down your way. And Bill Ebert, good morning, Bill. Sometimes we can see your name. Sometimes we can't. You have to have the Restream app, or I'm sorry, downloaded for us to see your name. But so anyway, thanks for joining us. And Mike, we got a lot to talk about today, bud.
Yeah, I want to talk about your guys' answer. Well, then maybe when we come back live here on the air. But I want to hear you guys' answer on the people that say, you know what, I'm going to wait for X. Right?
Yeah.
So we should talk about that because, a lot of people are quasi comparing this to like 07, 08, and it's completely different,
Sure.
And so back then everyone was like, I'm waiting for X. And there was a good reason why. Well, it's a completely different reason now, and waiting doesn't do you any good. So I want to bring that up to you guys and see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is Google Warren Buffett and who's the Christian real estate guy?
Rodney Dangerfield.
No,
Rodney Dangerfield.
He's out of it now.
What happened to Rodney, by the way? Is he still living?
He got no
No.
respect. He quit.
yeah, there's no way he can still
No.
live. You think he's still living?
I don't know. If you know that,
Dave Ramsey.
you know if he is. If
Dave
you let us
Ramsey. Yeah,
know, maybe
Dave
Google it.
Yeah, so Dave Ramsey, if you Google those two, they both have a really, really good comparison why you should never wait in any market to buy real estate, because it's a long-term investment. Over time, it appreciates. Right now, they're saying you can still get a decent value at a property because rates are where they're at. buy it and refinance? I mean, there's
Right.
there's tons of reasons.
Yeah, it's a good question though. I think it's a really good one to talk about. Whether or not it does make sense to wait in any sense. Brad, has your daughter made an offer yet on a home?
She did. Her and John made an offer, and they weren't pre-approved. So they made the classic sin, didn't listen to dad.
So didn't get
And,
approved.
didn't get pre-approved, and they were going to go get pre-approved and make an offer, and it was gone by the time they were able to do that.
Yeah.
And they in their heads, they had already remodeled where they were taking out walls, what they were doing to doors. I mean,
Yeah.
they were already set.
Where's the house?
It was in Ramsey.
Okay.
Well, and that's the personal part of real estate that you can, if you do it long enough, you kind of start to get a little bit jaded on. Is you got to remember, I mean, this is the most exciting thing that is going on in your client's life, literally. So when like when Brad was saying that about his daughter, they'd already redone the house, they've already remodeled, they've already done all these things. And then there's 10 offers on it, and you don't get it. We're like, well, we lost out on a multiple. I mean, because we do it all the time, and you forget what is emotionally going on in that household when you just got off the phone with your clients. And said,
Devastating.
hey, we didn't get it. It's devastating.
Especially first time buyer.
Yeah.
Never been through it, wanting to get your first house, losing.
Absolutely.
How do you help through that, Mike?
I just say keep on swinging.
Keep
Eventually-
swinging.
Eventually, they'll hit a home run.
Yeah. Yeah. You too, Scott?
Yeah, in my experiences, 99 times out of 100, the home they end up with is the one that they would have preferred to have anyway. So I mean, I always think things happen for a reason.
Yeah. Again, we're going live on air on Love 105 FM every Sunday morning, 10 to 11. Thanks for tuning in. Hope your weekend's going well. Questions, comments, thoughts, don't hesitate to comment on the social media stream. Thank you. Good morning and welcome back to the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Hope your Sunday is going well. It is July the 9th, 2023. This has been kind of the vacation week. I know for a lot of people, a lot of families with the 4th of July in the middle of the week, a lot of people out of town, a lot of people up at the cabins. If you are up at the cabin, hope you're having some fun. Taking out the boats, the jet skis, doing some fishing like you do, Mike, right? You're a big
yeah.
fisherman.
Yep. Almost every. Oh, I could take my boys every single day and they wouldn't get sick of it.
Do you boat though? You're not a boater, are you?
Well, I mean, we're on a boat to fish. Does that count?
we boat to where we want to fish, but
Yeah.
But you're not a let's go out for a midnight cruise for 3 hours.
Yeah, typically not. I mean, I'll do it and stuff like that, but usually if we're just cruising around the lake, we're pulling rappels while we're doing it, at the same time. So
How fast do you get to your fishing hole, I think is the question.
yeah, right. Well, luckily on our lake, it's small enough where you don't have to. You can get anywhere in that lake in 5 minutes. So that's the good thing about it.
Yeah, we want to every week. Again, we have one partner with the Minnesota Real Estate Show from mnrealestateshow.com. Join us to provide updates, feedback, and just sort of what's new in their world as it affects buyers and sellers and listeners here in the Twin Cities in the Minnesota real estate market. So this week we've got Brad Sanford, Farmers Insurance, with us. Brad, as always, great to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Love being a part of the group.
Yeah, we appreciate you, and a lot going on in your family. With your daughter, talk about what's cooking.
So Abby and John are looking for a home, and they like the northwest suburbs. That's where they want to live. And so, you always teach your kids to be strong and fervent, and you can do anything, right? Well, they didn't ask for dad's help. They went out, started looking at houses, and they fell in love with a house. And I think in their heads, they'd already remodeled the home and that kind of thing, but they weren't pre-approved. And so the time to go get pre-approved and then put an offer, they lost the house in the meantime, but they regrouped, and now they're looking at homes. And I was just talking to them last night when I dropped them off at the rodeo, and they believe that they'll have a house in the next 60 days, things like that. But I think the reason is because they live in an apartment right now, and there they know like 3 or 4 people in the apartment complex, but one of those people they ran into in the stairs, and they said, hey, you're looking for a home, aren't you? And Abby and John said, yeah, absolutely.
They were accosted.
Yes, they were stopped on the stairs. And the guy said, I listened to this show, the Minnesota Real Estate Show. You got to listen to it. They have all kinds of knowledge. I've learned so much. It's a great show. You should really listen to it. It'll help you out. And John starts snickering and he goes, hey, do you know Brad Sanford on their Farmers? Like, he goes, oh, yeah, I know him. He's great. He knows his stuff, all that. It's just, oh, yeah. And then he starts jibber jabbering at my daughter, Abby. And then Abby's head, she's like, this is just my dad. Why are you getting all worked up about this? But see, I think that's part of the reason why they just went out and went look for a home and didn't say, hey, Dad, how do we go about this process, right?
That's our little real estate show kind of marketer. We send them out to have these
other
random
people's.
conversations with people to just say, hey, you know this. They're like, what?
They've hit the northwest part of the.
They've hit the Northwest. That was last week. We had them doing that.
It was last week. You were correct.
Yeah, it is. There's been a few of those, Scott, over the years, some random occurrences.
Yeah, there definitely has. But one thing that Brad had said that we were talking a little bit off air, which I always try to keep cognizant in my mind. But as agents, we do this all the time. So there's 15 offers on a house. Our client either gets it or doesn't get it, and we're used to it, and we do that roller coaster for a living. But when Brad said his daughter already remodeled the house, had already thought about paint colors, had already thought about this. That's the emotional part that is happening every time you hang that phone up after you've told your client they didn't get the house.
Yeah.
We go on our business and we go out and get a Slurpee or whatever we do, and your couple is sitting there just devastated. And it's important for all agents to try to keep that in the forefront of your mind.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it is a really good point. And I think especially for a first-time home buyer, I mean, all buyers, all sellers, it can be devastating. It is your home. It is, where you're gonna be, and that can just be, devastating. Hard to pick up the pieces, but like you said, Mike, you just got to keep swinging. You have to keep going. You have to keep looking at properties, and oftentimes you find one that's even better.
Yeah, like Scott said, things happen for a reason. So you lose the first one, maybe you lose the second one, the third one, but maybe that fourth one is like, at the end you're like, good thing we missed out on those first three, because this fourth one is actually the best one, the one we like the most.
We had a comment saying this sounds like you guys are giving dating advice.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna start a whole different show on just giving dating advice.
Dating advice. Just keep swinging.
Yep,
Scott.
I thought about that for years. Look, I've been divorced twice. You want to learn from me, so we should do a show just for all advice on everything relationship oriented.
Starting a podcast. Mike, you had a good comment about during the break. Mention that about topic wise for the show today.
Yeah. So a lot of people that we talk to, they have the ability to buy now, but we hear I can buy now, but I'm going to wait for X. And sometimes I'm going to wait for home prices to come down, or I'm going to wait for interest rates to come down, or I'm waiting for something, right? To save for a bigger down payment. Well, what's the actual cost of waiting? Because a lot of people are thinking and comparing this to 07 and 08, when home prices did get cut by 50% in a lot of places. And you could buy a home much cheaper if you would have waited a year or 2 years. But it's completely different. Back then we had 45,000 listings. How many do we have now? 7,000, right? And so it's a completely different market now, and you can't compare it to 07, 08. And so I wanted to get your guys' thoughts when someone says, hey, I can buy now, but I'm going to wait for X. What's your guys' reply to that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you look at some of the biggest real estate gurus in the nation, they will all say the same thing. When should you buy real estate? Right now. And you can even use the example of what you did back in 05, 06, 07, and not to point Ryan out, but Ryan bought Ryan bought the majority of his investment properties between 2003 and 2005, height of the market.
Worst time you could
possibly buy. So then the market hits the in 06. All those properties drop by half the value, literally. So did he make a bad investment? No, because buying investment property is a long-term investment. So now here we are 20 years later, the mortgages have paid way down. It is appreciated back to where they're worth way more than you paid for them. So again, that example, could you have waited 3 years and got a better deal? possibly, but it made sense to buy at that point. And the value of money. When you look at the value of money going into a property, it's always better to buy now. Interest rates are at 7.5. You know what? You buy, you wait for rates to drop down, and now you can buy lower. Rates go back to 3.5. Every property just goes up 15 to 20%. So
Right.
it's all the same thing.
Yeah, the other thing too, maybe you can comment on, Mike. I think what people forget, if you haven't bought or sold a home, since the crash, they've changed the whole appraisal process and how homes are appraised and who orders the appraisal and who the appraiser talks to. Before, lenders and appraisers were all in one room together, like we are here right now, and they're talking, saying, "Hey, Scott, you got a purchase agreement for 400,000. Boy, I really need an appraisal to come in at 400,000." And sure enough, the appraisal came in at 400,000. Well, now none of that happens, Mike. Maybe talk about the difference. And if I'm a buyer now worried about prices being high, I'm not going to buy because prices are high. Maybe talk about that appraisal.
Yeah, so appraisers are completely independent people. They're not hired by they're not employees of the bank. They're not employees of any lender. They're not employees of anything. They're completely independent. And so what happens
I've always
is,
felt them as needy. I suppose they're independent, but I always thought they were needy.
right? So when an order goes in, a loan officer doesn't pick the appraiser that the order goes to. You have to go through a third party company. That third party company is the conduit where lender submits their order to the third party. Third party sends that order now to round robins it out to a licensed appraiser that's in that zip code. Loan officer doesn't know which appraiser is going to get it, doesn't have the contact information for the appraiser. All the appraiser sees is that there's an order here, and here's the purchase agreement for this house. I got to go appraise this house. Appraisal comes back through the system. Now, once the appraisal is done, now the loan officer can actually see the appraisal report, which has the appraiser's name and contact info and stuff like that. But the appraisal and the value has already been set. You can't call up the appraiser ahead of time and be like, "Hey, really need this one to come in at this value, otherwise the deal's not going to work," or whatever. There is none of that these days.
Can you dispute it? You now see the information. Can you dispute that?
You can dispute, yeah. So if the appraisal comes in underneath the purchase price, can you appeal that? You certainly can, but you got to have justification for your appeal.
Yeah, it used to be years and years ago. You could just order a redo on it. Say we don't agree with it. Now they won't even do it unless you can give real justification of what they're going to look for. On the appraisal thing, back at the crash in 06, 07, we would have appraisers that would call in that were super mad, but more importantly, we would have banks that call in because when they got bailed out, and I was like, look, I haven't been off in 5% on a value of a home in forever, and you're telling me that you sold this home to them for 400 grand, you cashed them out for 100 grand a year later at 500. 6 months later, you gave them another 100 grand, so now it's at 5. They were appraising properties for the banks as long as you had good credit scores, which when you're appreciating at 15%, hey, makes sense. All of a sudden, the market crashes, and that's what caused that whole thing. And I think people forget a lot of times it was the banks knew what they were doing. They were just betting on a comeback. That's what they were doing.
Yeah, again, we're up against the break, the halfway point at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. 612-294-6949. Throughout the week, you can call us, you can text us at that number, or visit mnrealestateshow.com. For any of your questions, comments, thoughts, we are here to help you. We've got a great second half of the show coming up here after the break. A lot to talk about. Again, we've got Brad Sanford, Farmers Insurance, joining us here today, and a lot going on in his world as well that we'll be discussing. We'll be back after the break. Thanks for joining us on social media. We appreciate all the comments and appraisals. I just think the appraisal issue is a common one. That, to your question, Mike, is why a lot of people maybe say, well, I'm going to hold off on buying because maybe they think values are high. Question for you that came in. How do you get that second appraisal ordered? In other words, if you feel that it's low, you dispute it. Is that always an automatic where you can get that second appraisal?
It's definitely not automatic. The underwriter on the file has to approve the ordering of a second appraisal. So you're going to have to prove that the first appraisal is invalid for whatever reason, right? There's better comps that should have been used. The appraiser used, comp A, B, and C over here, but comps D, E, and F are actually better because they're closer, they sold more recent, or they're more similar to the property or something like that. Or you got to prove that, it's like this house is a 4-bedroom house, 4-bedroom, 3-bath with, 2,500 square feet. And the appraiser has, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet on the appraisal. Like there's just factual data that's off, right? So you got to be able to prove, that, hey, this appraisal is invalid because of all these things that are wrong with it. And we just want to get a different appraiser in the mix.
Does the appraiser know what the house is selling for?
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah. So they get a copy of the purchase agreement.
Because really that dictates the value of the home, doesn't it? What somebody's willing to pay for it?
No, that's what
Well,
dictates the value to us. It
Right.
doesn't dictate the
In the
value of the
market.
bank.
In the market,
in the
yeah,
market,
absolutely.
But on an appraisal side of things, what dictates the value is comps.
So
you
this
know?
change has really exasperated the fact that if you really want that home and there's a difference of the appraised value and what you're willing to buy it for, you got to come up with that.
If it's in the contract that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times, not in this market as much because you're seeing what appraisal gaps. But in a normal market, a lot of agents will write, if property does not appraise for appraised value, both buyer and seller agree to sign a cancellation or renegotiate the terms. So if, let's say you bought it for 600, it comes at 575. What used to happen a lot of times, buyer and seller would split that. Now people are writing in appraisal gaps, which means that the buyer is on the hook to bridge that gap.
And they're needing to do that to get their offer accepted.
Yeah.
So it's like house is listed at 600,000, you make an offer at 675 with no appraisal gap guarantee. Well, now the listing agent's like, well, that doesn't do us any good because if the thing appraises at 600, the buyer's not paying the 675.
That's right.
They're going to come back and they're going to say, appraised for 600. We want to pay 600 for it. So if you have a guarantee on there to say, hey, we'll pay you 675, and if the appraisal comes under 675, we'll make up the difference out of pocket. Now you got a solid deal. Now that listing agent's like, here we go.
Yeah, and that's why, especially in multiple offer situations too, listing agents will make different decisions based upon what they think it might appraise for. In other words, that's why you don't see a lot of seller paid closing costs and pushing the value up another 10,000 if the buyer financed it into the deal. Listing agents, sellers don't want to see that because they may get worried about the appraisal saying, hey, Brad, you bumped your offer up by another 15 grand. We don't think that's going to appraise.
Plus you increase the comparables that would be used for other sales in the future for that. Yeah.
Yeah. What I tell sellers a lot of times is, so let's say strategically, I'm putting the home on the market for 500,000 because I know I'm going to elicit more offers, and the property gets an offer of 565. All the terms are great. They put in appraisal gap coverage, so we go ahead and go with it. I always tell them you sold your house somewhere between 500,000 and 565 because they're not going to gap 40,000 bucks. So just if it comes in at 450, they probably buy your house for 450, or I'm sorry, 550, which is still better than what we thought you were going to get.
Right.
But what I feel about appraisals, what I feel about people bridging a gap, I think it's very rare that happens. I think it becomes a negotiating term afterwards. And that's just what I think.
Yeah, we're going live on air here. Again, it's Love 105 FM. Thanks for joining us and the kind comments on social media. Really appreciate it. Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the second half of the Minnesota Real Estate Show. I hope your weekend is going well. It's Sunday morning, 10 to 11, the Minnesota Real Estate Show, hosted by Mike Overson, Luminate Home Loans, Luminate Bank here in the Twin Cities, and Scott Wolmering and myself, Ryan O'Neill. We've been talking a little bit about appraisals and getting the reasons that someone may be holding off on buying if they're worried about value in the Twin Cities. Mike, we're talking about getting a second appraisal when that happens. We have a current transaction right now where both appraisals have come in low, under the purchase price. Okay. And it's our buyer. Obviously, we're advocating for our buyer. As a lender, what would you say in that situation? So our buyer got one appraisal, came in low, $25,000 low, agreed to do a second appraisal. So paid $500 or whatever it is for another appraisal, did the second appraisal, that came in low as well. What is your thought on that as a lender?
I mean, if two came in under, I mean, imagine if you order a third one, guess what's going to happen?
Going to come
It's
in.
going to come in under. I mean, you know what I mean? At that point, I think it's pretty clear. It's like, look, it's not going to appraise. You had two licensed appraisers completely independent from each other. The second appraiser didn't see the appraisal on the first one, right? So they don't have any sort of bias there on value. I would imagine that at this point, everyone's got to come to the fact that here's the appraisal value, and you're going to have to figure out a solution.
What if the seller doesn't agree with that? They say, look, we just want to get rid of your buyer because we think these were too bad appraisals.
What's the contract say? I mean, I don't think they can just walk away just because they don't like it.
Well, the seller does have control at that time, because if they're not going to accept the low appraisal, they're not going to sell it for that.
Sure.
So, so at that point, either the buyer is going to come up with the money, the seller and the buyer are going to come to some kind of an agreement. But I am asked a lot from buyers when there is a low appraisal. Well, why would I paid 500 when the appraisal came in at 485? And the answer is simple: because you promised to pay 500 for it. There were 10 offers on it. You wanted it, and so you agreed to pay $500,000. So logically, it should be the responsibility of the buyer to, if they have the financial ability to do that, to buy the property for what they agreed to buy it for.
Before we dive in a little bit more with Brad, Sanford Farmers Insurance, I did want to feature a listing. Miss Karen Lunzer, awesome agent on the Minnesota real estate team, Remax Advantage Plus. She's got a new one in the Mac Groveland neighborhood, 1728 Palace Avenue. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath home. It's in the Mac Groveland neighborhood, again in St. Paul. She said it's great for a family or invest as a rental, as it's close to St. Thomas and also St. Kate's. $400,000 for this property. It's going live tomorrow. And she has an open house too, from 4:30 to 6. So tomorrow Monday, 4:30 to 6. Again, 1728 Palace Avenue, 4-bed, 2-bath, 400,000. That sounds like a really nice one.
It does. I know that area. It's a really nice one. I've got one in Burnsville, 27 Geneva. We just had a price improvement on that, so it is now listed at $650,000. It is a 5-bedroom, 4-bath walkout rambler on an acre wooded lot in Burnsville, District 196, school district. It's been repainted, recarpeted. Kitchen cabinets have been redone. It's just a gorgeous house in obviously an upper scale neighborhood. 5,300 square feet, 27 Geneva Boulevard in Burnsville.
Mike, we had a comment from John Hill as well, who said clients may also be able to get a second appraisal if they go to another lender. Maybe talk about that from a consumer's perspective.
Yeah, so if it's a conventional loan, absolutely. So conventional loans don't transfer from lender to lender. You can in some cases. Most of the time, you just don't. The next lender just orders their own appraisal. So that in a conventional side of things, yeah. So you switch lenders, that lender is going to order a completely independent appraisal again on the conventional loan, and then you're subject to whatever that appraisal comes in at. If you're talking about FHA or VA, lender number one orders an FHA or VA appraisal on a house. That appraisal now sticks to the house for all buyers and all lenders, right? So if it's an FHA appraisal, any other FHA buyers come into that house, regardless if they work with that first lender or if they work with a different lender, that FHA appraisal sticks to the house for 4 months. On the VA side of things, same thing, get a VA appraisal done in a house. Any VA buyers, any lender that comes to that house to lend on it, that appraisal will stick for 6 months.
So 4 months for FHA, 6 months for VA.
Yep.
But again, if they do that second appraisal, if they switch lenders and you've done 2 appraisals already, does switching a lender make sense for the buyer in that situation, do you think?
Personally, no. You already got 2 appraisers, on the conventional side of things, you got 2 appraisers. Again, they're independent from each other. The first one didn't see the work of the second one and vice versa. I just don't think you're going to gain much traction. Are you going to get $5,000 out of it? Maybe, but it's, if you're $25,000 low on 2 appraisals, third appraiser is not going to come in and say this house is worth $25,000 more than the other 2. Maybe you get a few $1,000, like I said, $5,000 or so, because they make some different adjustments for things. But I just don't think you're going to make up that gap.
I'm sorry. What's the lowest? Lowest appraisal you've had
Like this year?
ever?
Oh, so this is a story, and this is not common, right? New construction home built on Minnetonka. The guy was into it for $2.95 million. Okay, the lot and the house, everything, 2.95, brand new construction. first appraisal. So when you're doing a loan amount over $1.5 million, you have to get 2 appraisals done. You have to order it, right? So the first appraisal comes in at 2.5 million. Second appraisal comes in at 3.05 million. Okay, so we're $550,000 difference between
Wow.
the first appraisal and the second appraisal. It's a jumbo loan. We had to order 2 right out of the gate. So when you have 2 appraisals, you got to use the lower value of the 2. But I went to the underwriter and said, how can we be $550,000 off between appraisers on this property? Like, we got to have a tiebreaker appraisal done because that's way too far of a gap, right? So then appraisers are underwriters like, yep, okay, let's order a third one. That'll be the tiebreaker. Third appraisal comes in 3.15. So you got a 3.15, a 3.05, and a 2.5 on the same house. So the span between the top and the low is $650,000.
That's crazy. Well, again, and that's obviously super high price point, unusual. I do want to, again, before the break, we've been talking to Brad Sanford, Farmers Insurance. Brad, what is going on in the insurance world? What are you seeing? I mean, again, in our market, we've seen a tick back, maybe 20, 25, 30% less transactions. Is the insurance world really getting hit hard as well? I would guess, because you do a lot of homes.
Yeah, what we've talked about previously, where the big carriers like Farmers, Allstate, State Farm, all those guys, were writing a little bit less, and then the lower carriers, the smaller carriers, the local carriers are writing a little bit more. So you're seeing that companies are pulling back from certain areas like Florida and California. It's just so chaotic there that they don't want to write policies there.
Does Farmers insure in Florida?
We used to. We pulled out, and recently this week we pulled out of California, writing not all policies, but reducing way back.
So anywhere in Florida?
Yeah, anywhere in Florida. Yep.
And is that the same with State Farm?
I didn't see them
Okay.
there, but it typically insurance companies, as you know for sure, Mike, you're in the mortgage industry. Florida is the nation's capital for fraud for mortgage.
Yeah.
So it's a precarious situation to be in and writing policies, much like the scenario you guys are talking about here. You've got the appraised value, you have the sales price, but you also have the rebuild price in my world, right? Hopefully it's close to the appraised value, because what we go off of is we go off of the national average of what it would cost for 2x4s and cement blocks and all that to rebuild it, right? And that's really not to diminish you 3 here, but really I'm the most important, right?
You absolutely.
All right,
We know
there's
that.
consensus.
Yeah.
It's what happens if a tornado or a fire happens, what it costs to rebuild it, right? And that's why you want to have a great relationship with Brad Sanford at Farmers, 651-690-2076.
Yes.
Because we'll stay on top of the value of that home, of what it costs to rebuild.
Do you do that annually? Is there an annual assessment automatically with Farmers or most companies, or how do homeowners know what to do?
Most agents set and forget. I like to get a commitment from my clients to either do it every year or every 2 years.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big.
Why would they not? Why wouldn't insurance companies have that built in, like a mechanism built in where every year it evaluates? You got a team that does it. I mean, is it just cost of hiring people?
The catch is that my worst nightmare is to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Someone called me, said they had a fire,
Yeah.
and hey, you need to help me, and what do I need to do? And then you find out that you can't rebuild the house because you didn't update the value. So insurance companies just arbitrarily take what your neighborhood value increases, and they increase that amount of the dwelling, which, my wife was saying, you never talk about yourself enough on the show. You always talk about real estate and all that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I have a lot of years of experience. So I like the conversations that we're having, and I like to be part of those. But there's all kinds of different nuances to homeowners policies. Like, you're getting the dwelling cost to rebuild, but you're also getting cost to live somewhere else until it's done, right? So that's another 10 to 20% of whatever the cost of the home is, of the insurance. You're getting 75% of that number to replace your personal property. So there's a lot of coverage that goes into a $650,000 purchase that you're not actually getting just $650. You're getting a lot more than that. So one of your biggest investments, you want to make sure that you are covered insurance-wise.
Yeah, we're going to continue the discussion with Brad Sanford, Farmers Insurance. Welcome your questions. 612-294-6949 by phone or text or on social media as well. We'll be back after the break.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say thanks for joining us. So many comments. John, thank you. A really good point about the second appraisal as well. Appreciate, again, everybody's comments. Sometimes, again, we can see your name. Sometimes we can't with this platform we use called Restream. You have to have it downloaded, I think, on your phone or your computer to see your name. So if we don't see it, that's why we're not mentioning your name. But sorry, Scott.
No, I was just going to say one of the things I've heard through the years on appraisals, which is an interesting discussion, is so appraisers who are supposed to be partial, totally independent to come up with a value for the bank. Why in the world would they get to see the purchase agreement price
That says the price on it, right?
that says the price on it? And I think it is just, it's different. As a real estate agent, we're coming up with the price based on our comparables. This is the price that we think you're going to sell it at. An appraiser needs to justify that price. So I think that's why they get to see it. So the sale price is 400. Now they work at it backwards to justify the 400. They're not starting from scratch to find out what the home is worth. So there is a difference in how that's done.
Yeah, again, Brad, I think that was a good point. You need to talk more about those things you're doing, but because I think that's important. It's a way to, again, to help our listeners, help people watching, save them money, protect them. Because that's, I mean, think about that. Your house, you have a fire, you wake up, you're like, well, we have homeowners insurance. Well, you'd think you'd look at it and you're covered. Well, you're not.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I jokingly say, I don't mean to diminish you guys, but the insurance coverage, when you have a problem, that's when you need us the most, right? So, but you're absolutely right. See, I go back to all my life experience. You're doing the price of the home based on comparables, what's sold recently, right? And the appraiser's got to validate that home actually appreciated with.
That's right. Yeah, they work at it. Their job is to justify that value to the bank. Our job is to come up with what that value is, not from scratch, because you're using comparables to get there. But that's why I not to diminish appraisers, but if you have a $700,000 house and you appraise it at $695, you're just a jerk. You're not that good. I mean, you're just not that good.
You can't buy $5,000.
No, yeah, and I see that through the years, and I'm always like, that guy is just, or gal is just being a jerk.
Well, and
It's
again,
gonna
just
screw it
so
up.
everybody understands too, if you're watching, the reason that's a problem is, again, if you have a purchase agreement or contract that says 700, that's what everyone's agreed to. Now, if that doesn't come in at the value, if it's 2,000 less or 3,000 or 5,000, that is a problem. Now everyone needs to talk again, renegotiate, figure out what's going to happen with the deal. So that's what Scott was referencing too. It's a problem for everybody.
Yeah, or 1,500. I've had those through the years. A $1,500 low appraisal.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What if the toilet was from Italy?
Yeah.
And it was worth $4,000? I mean, it's like you're not that good. When the higher you get in price, if it's a little amount, or the lower you get in price, if it's a little amount, no one is that good.
Yeah, it is. Mike, from a mortgage standpoint, are we seeing a lot of people leaving as loan officers?
Yeah. I would say probably not as many as maybe as real estate agents, but there's definitely people leaving the industry. Absolutely.
Okay.
And we'll see more of that happen. We'll see more of that throughout the rest of this year, which is fine, right? Every industry goes through a cycle. It's kind of cleanse it out, it gets saturated with people. This is one of those things where it's actually, I think, good for our industry. So
yeah, we're getting ready to go back live on air. Again, it's Love 105 FM. Hope your weekend's going well. Here we go. Hey, thanks for joining us. Final segment of the Minnesota Real Estate Show every Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Love 105 FM. This is a local real estate show. We have been on air for over 15 years at a variety of different places in the Twin Cities, but we appreciate you joining us here on Love 105 FM. And we've talked a lot about appraisals today. That's been a big, hot topic. And again, we've got our friend Brad Sanford, Farmers Insurance. Brad, any other thoughts for people today that they should be aware of from an insurance standpoint? Any other items to discuss?
Well, when you're looking for an insurance agent, understand that the insurance agent that you want to have is one that's working for you, right? We represent the three pillars of a purchase of a home. the mortgage and the real estate and the insurance. And you want somebody that has the knowledge and the experience like we have to walk you through that process. You don't want to just jump into the process and go through it and muddle through, and you want the guidance and you want the help to get through that. And I think the insurance side of it is a very important side of it. So
Well, why not just price? A lot of times the customer, and we get it in real estate or in mortgage. Hey, I'm going to go with a lender that I've seen online that I'm going to save $400 a year. I mean, why not?
carriers have different little nuances to them. Like us, your hybrid electric bike is covered by your personal property. Your pool, if it's an indoor pool, which we have a few of those on Lake Minnetonka area, that's considered part of the home, right? But if it's an in-ground pool, then that is considered part of the Schedule B, which is a different part of the policy, which you get 10% of whatever your home value is. And then if it's above ground, that's considered part of your personal property. So make sure that the value of that pool is added to or is enough of the personal property coverage that you have. So there's little things like that to talk about. A hot tub, those types of things. A trampoline. Do you have to have a fence for a trampoline on your property?
I'd say no.
If it's less than an acre, I would say yes.
You do have to have a fence unless you're in the rural area and your neighbors cannot see it from the road.
So is that why a lot of them now have the encasements?
It could be.
This is totally off real estate, but insurance related, and I've always wondered this. How do you
No.
how do you insure a ring? So I got a $50,000 ring, and I want insurance on it. How would they ever know? I mean, you could throw a ring in your pocket and say you lost it.
It's an endorsement, and it's called scheduled property, scheduled jewelry. Like you can schedule your guns, you can schedule rugs, oriental rugs, those kinds of things. So you would add an endorsement, you get an appraisal or a receipt, and then the insurance agent will write that information on, and then you've got a separate endorsement onto your homeowner's policy.
Okay, so my wedding ring is worth $50,000, and my wife lost it. So you go in and you get a check for $50,000. But my point is, how in the world would the insurance company know if she still has the ring? It's a ring.
We wouldn't.
Wow, I've never understood that.
We
I haven't.
we
The
love
things
we
you
love you,
think
Scott.
about.
Well, I haven't.
I'm like, where is this?
Like,
Where's this coming from?
I heard this from a friend of mine. She said, "Well, I had my ring insured, and I lost it." And I was thinking, well, how in the world would they know if you lost it? You could throw it in a drawer and say, "Lost my ring."
Interesting, Scott. The mind of Scott.
Well, I
Wolverine.
guess, yeah. So, anyways, that's one of those things.
We
Hey,
love you, Scott.
Things,
We
yeah,
got
we
we
love
use that
things
ring.
that make you say,
Hey, before we, as we head to the home stretch here, Brad, be sure, best way again, people to connect with a local person, someone that can go through these intricacies, someone that will represent you. Best way for people to connect.
Minnesota Real Estate Show, your.com, or you can reach me at my office, 651-690-2076.
Yeah, great job as always there, young man.
I enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, very good stuff. Very helpful, informative information, whether you are looking to buy or sell a home or whether you are losing a wedding ring.
Yeah. So if you need,
Or hiding it.
yeah. So if you need a down payment, call Brad. Tell him to insure your ring, and you lost your
And
ring.
then lose it.
Yeah, that's right.
Terrible.
Insurance fraud.
Terrible. Yeah, that is just terrible. Mike, hey, last minutes. Thoughts for people from a mortgage perspective, buyers, sellers, existing homeowners.
I had a conversation with one of my buyers that he was working with a real estate agent, and he emailed me out of the blue. And I hadn't heard from him for like 3 weeks, so he kind of pulled back a little bit. He's just like, it's I'm not finding what I'm looking for, so I'm just going to casually look at this point. And he emailed me out of the blue and said, hey, there's this off-market opportunity that I have. We're not going to have any agents involved in this and that. And he's like, how does that process look? And I emailed him back and I said, I got to be honest with you. I don't think it's a smart move to go into this without a real estate agent, because you have all these things that you don't think about. Like Brad was saying, you got all these things that you don't think about, that you don't know about the insurance side of things. Same thing with buying a house. There's all these little things where you can really get yourself in trouble if you don't have a watchful eye looking out for those things. And so I said, look, I know that you were working with Joe before. You can do this without an agent.
Not to single them out.
Right. You can do this without an agent, but I really encourage you to reach out to Joe and have him help you with this, because trust me, it's worth every penny to have a watchful eye like that on your side. So My advice to everyone out there is, you can do things yourself when it comes to insurance, mortgage, real estate. It usually does not pay to not have someone in your corner.
If you are offering too, quick tip, if you are offering at any homes in the Twin Cities, please use a local lender. Please have someone that you can call on the telephone. Mike, that's why we work with you. You pick up the telephone when we call, and you're in Burnsville.
Yeah.
That may seem dumb to people. They're like, I'm going with the online person. Sellers, listing agents don't like online
Not at
companies.
all.
Well, it's like, agent on your team, Bill on your team yesterday, he called me. He's like, this person wants to use bank so-and-so. He's like, I can never get a pre-approval from them on the weekend when my buyers are out there actually looking and making offers. So I told her, it's like, look, if you want to have the best shot, you gotta have someone that's available to help out when you need it. So
Yeah, no, it's a big difference. And you got to remember that, especially if you're in a price range where, there's going to be 10, 15 offers on that property. Most listing agents, if it's, and I won't name the out-of-state lenders, we can all name them, or some local big banks, those go on the bottom of the pile. I mean, if there's a better offer using a local lender, again, it's always price, terms, condition, and the least amount of hassle. That's what you look for when you're accepting a multiple.
Yeah, it's been a fun show here at the Minnesota Real Estate Show. Scott, do you have any last thoughts for people?
No, I'm just, Brad said it earlier with his daughter not getting pre-approved and, finding the home of their dreams. They weren't able to move on it. Happens a lot, guys. So if you're out there right now thinking that you're out looking at real estate, maybe you're going through some open houses, maybe you're just getting started, go get pre-approved, because it will happen. You're going to find a house that you love. There's going to be 4 offers on it, and you're going to be playing catch up and lose it.
And in Mike's example too, you can always have a real estate agent facilitate the deal for you to still help through that. So Mike's example is a good one as well. Nice job, guys. Great show. Brad, as always, Brad Sanford, Farmers Insurance. We appreciate you, Brad. You're always full of knowledge.
You got to bring the knowledge.
That's right.
Mike, Scott, good job, guys. We'll see you next week. Mike, are you going fishing today?
I am. So,
You are. Look at that.
So there's a couple on the lake that we met, and our kids end up hanging out at church and stuff like that. And so we went for a walk, and they're out the other night, and they stopped by, and they're like, our kids want to go fishing with you because we see all the pictures of the fish that you post.
Oh,
So I'm taking my 2 boys, and they got 4 boys that are coming out with us this afternoon to go see if we can catch a muskie.
he's a good man. Mike Overson, Luminate Home Loans. Big thanks to JoJo as well, that comes in every Sunday morning to deal with us and to produce the show. So thank you, JoJo. We appreciate your efforts as always. This has been the Minnesota Real Estate Show. We're going to be back next Sunday again, 10 to 11 a.m. throughout the week, 612-294-6949. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Thanks for watching. It's been a fun show. A lot of good questions, comments, and Scott, congrats again on your big awards yesterday. Well done.
Appreciate it.
You want to flex for us as we go?
I do.
Yeah, I do not. Hey, we'll be back next weekend. Take care.